And now we have our fifth speaker, who is Anna Fransson, the director of the Chamber of Commerce of Spain and Sweden. She's been working for many years now in the international relationships, global businesses, sustainability, languages, culture, art as well. And she has a degree in tourism, art history by the university in Sweden, in the Frey University in Berlin. She was also doing a master in international relationship and global politics. And she has been working learning more about the culture in Spain and the way it connects with the international environments. She has also worked in international relationships and global politics, as I mentioned, in the Berlin University. And she worked mostly on the policies of energy and the environment, particularly interested in, for many years, in the waste management industry. She's been working as well on a family company, so she knows very well how businesses work. And she now, as I mentioned, is the director of the Chamber of Commerce, Spain, Sweden. So welcome. And tell us what's the role that, in your opinion, your organization has or plays, because we're talking about networks here, and we've been seeing different points of view and approaches so far, because we've been talking about how there are so many different infinite networks with different approaches and models, territories. You're a completely different model. You are a chamber of commerce. You connect to different countries through their different relationships. Well, thank you very much. I would like to thank Rafael, the forum, and everyone else. I'm going to try to explain what this is: a bilateral chamber of commerce. We have 200 different members, and we've been working with for more than 70 years. 75 almost. Most of the companies that work with us are Swedish, but we also have other Spanish companies interested in this bilateral relationship. I would like to explain what we do from the point of view of the networks, because that's the topic of today. So as we are the Swedish-Spanish Chamber of Commerce, we have local networks, but at the same time, we are part of the Association of the European Chambers in Spain, and then we're part of Swedish Chambers International, which is the International Chambers of Commerce, the ICC level. So here we're part of Team Sweden in Spain that connects the embassy, the Swedish government, the Office of Commerce of this government, us as a private entity advocating, as a non-profit entity, defending and advocating for the private businesses. So what can we do? Well, we had a great opportunity last week where the kings of Spain were in Sweden in an official visit. We wanted to have one after 40 years of not having one, so Team Sweden decided to work jointly with the Spanish embassy in Sweden and the Swedish embassy here, and we make sure that companies were able to be part of this official state visit so that they could do networking, because networking is key today. And that's why networks are key here as well, because we're facilitating that networking And not only that, there are other things that we do in terms of networking. For example, Spain, it's very interested in innovation. They want to export innovation. Sweden is very good at innovating. So there's a connection point right there. And there are other things like, for example, people traveling from one place to another. There are some digital companies from Sweden that want to come here to look for a better way of life. And we in Spain need digitalization. And digitalization in itself is allowing companies to work remotely. And then Spain is offering talent to Sweden because Spain has very interesting human assets. So this is a bilateral relationship. We are bringing digital talent and human resources to one country, from one country to the other, one way or the other. So that means that our companies, as I mentioned, most of the companies that are part of our Swedish-Spanish Chamber of Commerce are Swedish, but we have some big ones, SMEs, we have Volvo, but we also have digital startups, we have emerging companies, and all of these companies need to be supported. Where do I go if I want to do this? How do I work with the Spanish administration? Because this could pose a huge challenge for a smaller company. Thank you, Anna, for that information, because now you have made it very clear in just a few minutes what it is to network. So, Antonio, Anna, we are ready to start with the first questions now. So what's your opinion? Do you think that the biggest frontier for our SMEs when they are dealing with networks can be solved by digitalization? Do we think maybe that we have a greater access, or are we at a standstill point where basically we are not moving forward because we're just there? Well, when we're talking about SMEs, you're talking about barriers, and I think the main barrier would be support. In the terms of the support for trade in Murcia, the chambers of commerce are giving some of that support that allows companies to be able to have plans outside of their own region and country. And this is possible thanks to what the administration is doing and what the regions are doing. Because we are in the Murcia, we have always been entrepreneurs. We've always wanted to travel, to go abroad and see what goes on in other countries. We have a Chamber of Commerce for more than 2,000 years of history now. So aside from all that, our promotion institute, they're trying to foster and promote the SMEs. And what they're doing is incredible. It's allowing them to sell their products and services in other countries. But aside from all that, our own federation is now, we have created a program that is a single shop, one shop window platform that basically is still at a pilot level. But what we've been working with different municipalities in Murcia to train the staff in these companies so that in each municipality, people will be able to help other companies to digitalize, to bridge the gap and to start their businesses online. This is something that has been going on in Murcia, and we will move then to Milan, and we'll share these good practices with the rest of the world in no time, actually. Anna, the way in which you understand the use of networks, how digitalization is changing, how companies are doing this digitalization. What is, in your opinion, the way in which the Swedish-Spanish Chamber of Commerce can actually help to make these connections and these networks be more dynamic thanks to this new use of e-commerce? Is this going faster now? Is this helping the cooperation between businesses? Well, internet information on the internet flies because it goes so fast. It's not just using networks, and by network, one of the networks would be the internet. To use the internet as a marketing tool, as a way of letting customers know that you are there is fantastic, and this is so fast, and it goes so fast sometimes it's difficult to control. But it's true that it's important when we're talking about digitalization to have rules and to apply them. For example, the European laws to protect data. These uh, do not allow businesses to have an easy access to contact data. And that's precisely where we step in, because we can allow that connection that the privacy laws at the European level are sometimes hindering. So, for example, in Sweden, we do not even have the telephone numbers on the websites because of these privacy laws. So that's why we are so useful to allow these contacts to happen. And this was another important question I wanted to ask. Do you think the networks have the influence that is needed to modulate public policies? Like, for example, you've been talking about privacy laws because companies have their own needs, and networks are also creating these spaces where you can assess the way in which these laws are affecting the networks. Do you consider the possibility that the public sphere is taking into consideration the real needs of a company in an international landscape? Do you think that the public sphere truly understand how networks work for companies and the impact they have and how the laws and the networks interact? What's your point of view in all of these? Do you see main obstacles here, or do you think that maybe the public sphere does not understand how this all works? Because some networks sometimes they said, well, it's not that easy. It's not something that people actually take into consideration. They don't understand what we do and how we work, how to make networks dynamic happens. For example, private spheres, usually the private industry have a clearer view than the public sphere. Well, we're talking about influence and how to influence decisions, isn't it? Yes. Okay, well, from our point of view, what we can do, we organize different meetings like these kind of forums. And if these meetings have an influence, well, everything has an influence, because drop by drop, little by little, you can actually do something as long as you make sure that the information gets to the right people. If we're talking about networks, globalization and digitalization, I don't know. Well, no, not only necessarily digitalization. I mean the position of networks, because 30 years ago, networks were something that we barely knew about. So in Spain, 30 years ago was something new for us. But when we're talking about the Enterprise Europe network that was born in 2006, and 12, 13 years, it has basically generate this huge capacity to produce business. And this basically the way it works, sometimes they're like, well, but the European laws or European regulations or the European framework tends to clash with the dynamics that we want in our services. So I'm talking maybe more about, I don't know, is it all working together? Does it all make sense? From the point of view of the networks, there's a lot of diversity when we're talking about networks, because we've seen different models today. But that was basically Well, in my opinion, one of the main driving engines for SMEs is these development agencies, because the development agencies might be the first step or the first office where SME will go to find support to take their services or products abroad. Without these development agencies, SMEs will have it really difficult to actually get there because they will need that support. Without the support, creating those networks will be very, very difficult. Well, as we were mentioning, networks are very varied and different. There are many stakeholders and spaces. I want to thank all of the different speakers and our online speakers as well, because we've been able to see how different these networks are, how the models are formulating options that are multiple and that represent different models. And we've seen the model in Argentina, the harbor cities in LATAM, the Chamber of Commerce in the West African countries, and the realities as well in the Trade Points Federation or the Swedish-Spanish Chamber of Commerce, creating this cooperation links between companies in two different countries, how networks can go from regional to local to national and international. And this is a huge, huge format. Networks are growing and changing and adapting, and they are playing a fundamental role that will continue to be more and more important. Thank you very much for your time and attention, and this will be the end of our roundtable. Thank you.